99 hustles. 99 hustles.
Welcome to the 99 Hustles podcast. I'm your host, Nick Carter.
And I'm your co-host, International Fees.
And today we're joined by another exceptional entrepreneur and hustler, Rachel Hernandez. Rachel, how are you doing this morning?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Nick.
And we appreciate you. Rachel, as an author and a blogger, Rachel's books have hit #1 on Amazon, which is an incredible feat, and has also had her blogs featured as one of the top 20 real estate investing blogs. Rachel is a serial entrepreneur who's made a really big hit in the mobile home industry. So Rachel, before we get into those details, why don't you take us to the genesis of things and kind of, share your story and how you got into the entrepreneurial space?
Sure, no problem. So I first got interested in real estate investing. Actually, I had started before mobile home investing, reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And from that book, I know a lot of people, start with that book. I learned the concept of passive income because before I didn't know what passive income was. Basically, income that's not dependent on you having to earn it. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to have my own business, but I've just learned it's always active income. You've got to be the one making the money. And through that book, I learned the concept of passive income that got interested in real estate investing. So back when I started as a real estate investor, I actually started finding deals for other investors. So I became a bird dog. And a bird dog, someone who actually just goes out and find these deals. They don't put anything under contract, and then they get paid for their time if the investor closes on these deals. So
I think they're calling that now, like what, wholesaling pretty much now, right? That's kind of like what the term is now.
Yeah. The transition is into wholesaling. So after I did that for a while, I became a wholesaler. I still found the deals, but I put them under contract and then assigned my interest in the deal to these investors. So as a bird dog, you're talking about hundreds of dollars per deal versus a wholesaler, you get thousands of dollars per deal because you're taking the risk. So I did that, built up cash that way. And then once I had enough cash to start buying and holding, then I got into single family homes, became a landlord, had a portfolio, and then I just got burnt out as a landlord. It's just, even when I had property management managing these things, it was like just one more thing, just one more item to deal with, plus all the cash flow that was coming from the rent. A portion had to go towards a mortgage. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work for me. I just kind of got burnt out with the whole thing. And, you all know single family homes, there's a lot more money involved to get into one. So after that, I just sold my entire real estate portfolio. And then I stumbled upon Lonnie Scruggs, his Deals on Wheels. It was a course before it became a book. Read that, got into mobile home investing. And now I just buy these mobile homes for cash. And then I get the cash flow from there. And that's me ever since.
Wow.
That's a lot of things to kind of start and end with. What was like the timeline here we're talking? Is it over a course of a couple of years? You're talking a couple of months? Like how long did this process take?
Sure. Well, the real estate investing was way back in the beginning of my career. I've been in the mobile home investing business for over a decade. So I was in the real estate investing business before that, a few years before that. So basically, this is spanning a long time, a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures. But I will tell you, my first mobile home deal, it took me almost a year to find.
Wow.
So it was like 8 months. Had I stopped at 6 months, I probably wouldn't be here telling this story. I may not be a mobile home girl. So it's not as easy as the real estate gurus out there tell you it is, because they're all focused. We talked about this on deals and numbers but how about the point getting up to finding those deals? No one ever talks about that. because it's hard and it could be frustrating sometimes. So getting to your first deal is probably one of the hardest things
The
to do
toughest
as a
part.
real estate investor. Exactly. And that's what gets you in the game. So
Right.
Yeah. And Rachel, so speaking of like in the game, is like, so you read Rich Dad or Poor Dad. So it was like it was just like a light switch that went off. Like prior to that, did you have any, any other type of business experience, family members that were entrepreneurs, or any classes or anything, or, was it really just that one book that kind of just, turned you into an entrepreneur?
yeah, actually, I come from a family of professionals. So
Mm.
my dad, actually, he really wanted me to and I was going this route, but this is not the route that I wanted. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had the traditional lemonade stand as a kid. I did puppet shows just to raise
Yeah, yeah.
money for candy. That was my whole
Mhm.
thing as a kid. I just wanted I was deprived. My mom, she deprived me from candy. So I was always thinking about things to raise money for candy because I just wanted candy. So I did all those things. And then as I grew older, I really knew that I wanted to have my own business. And I remember I think it was in college, I had this career consulting business because I actually had a lot of experience in college. I was working in the entertainment industry, and I just had a lot of experience, big name companies. So then I started just consulting people because I was consulting people who were older than me who didn't know what they wanted to do before they graduated. So I was making money that way. And then I had like 3 jobs in college. I was taking notes for the university and they were paying me. So I always had some kind of side hustle going on.
So you always found a way to be able to afford candy, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah. I've always been a workaholic. So if I'm not working, then I'm thinking about like my next project. So
Mm,
I didn't have much of a social life in college. So I feel that I
Gotcha.
missed out on that portion. But there's a trade-off. So
Mhm.
but yeah, so I was actually even in a pre-MBA program in
mm.
college, and everyone in that program was actually older than me. They had already graduated. And I decided not to pursue my MBA. I had a mentor, and she was actually getting her MBA. And this girl is like super smart. She had a master's and a PhD at MIT, and then she had her undergrad at Stanford. So I mean, it was crazy. But she was like, Rachel, you do not belong here. I don't see you
Mm.
being a management consultant or being an investment banker, because a really small percentage of students who go through MBA school, that a really small percentage become entrepreneurs. That's the statistics. So I decided not to do that. And after college, I was just thinking, I was working. I was a sales executive for a few Fortune 500 corporations. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I was thinking about having a coffee shop, and then I like music, and maybe I can make music on the computer. And then I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then the light bulbs
Gotcha.
hit.
So
Gotcha.
it kind of sounds like you were trying to find like a passion to kind of keep you interested, because you had like, I guess, the work ethic already, but you didn't really know what
Yes.
to apply that to that still would keep you, fulfilled in some way.
Exactly. And I will tell everyone, I mean, I know it's not for everyone. My sales background, doing the sales, I was doing business to business sales, and everyone there they were older than me. And I was just like newly out of college. But my boss, who hired me because she was also a humanities major, I was a humanities major in school. She liked me. I think, Rachel, you can do this. That really helped for me as an entrepreneur, getting to know my sales skills. I'm already an extrovert, but it actually just kind of honed it in.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
sales skills is very important for any budding entrepreneur. If you can't do it yourself, then you have to learn how to hire people to do
Get
it
a
for
team.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, Rachel, so that transition between real estate and then mobile home investing, what would you say, could you compare the two different types of industries for us? Like, what do you like about mobile home investing that you might not like about real estate, or vice versa?
Sure. And I will say, it's not for everyone. Even real estate investing is not for everyone. You got to see if it's works with your personality and if you like it. And that's what I always tell people. Do something small first within that niche. And then if you like it, just continue. But it may not be for everyone. But the differences between real estate investing as mobile home investing is basically in single family homes, everyone starts out with that. So you're going to have more competition. So there's
Mm,
more known about it versus mobile home investing. There's not many people talking about it. It's a sub niche
sure.
within real estate investing. And the majority, a lot of real estate investors actually look down on mobile home and as an asset because they talk about, oh, it's going to depreciate in value. This is if you're buying the
Mm,
home as personal property not attached to land. But if you think about it, you're buying a single family home, you're putting all that time, all that money, is it really going to matter? And then you've got to put because I was a landlord, so I can speak on this.
Mhm.
Having single family homes,
True.
you're going to put a lot of money fixing up that property over the years versus a mobile home, and you spend less money for it, and then you're getting the cash flow. Yes, you may not get the appreciation, but for me, I'm more into cash flow than appreciation. So it
sure.
really depends what you're into. But I do like it because it's something that I can do with less competition. And it's
Mm.
really is a people business, both real estate and mobile home investing. But if you're going to be working in these mobile home communities, you have to get to know the park owner or the park manager. Otherwise, they may not let you work in their park. So
Interesting. So was that something that was now, I guess my question would be, how did you even get into the mobile home space since it wasn't something that's not really talked about often? You were already doing, fairly well with real estate and single family homes. Did you just come across a trailer park and it was spark hit you, or did someone kind of pass that along to you, like something to consider to look into?
sure. Two things. First thing was Lonnie Scruggs, his Deals on Wheels. And if y'all want to just link that in the show notes, that's fine
Yep.
if anyone's interested in that book. But then also, I ran across a couple mobile home investors in the beginning of my career. I ran across one and he had told me about it. And I was kind of like, I'm not sure. Then I tried it out. Then, and I talk about this in my podcast, Adventures on Mobile Homes, it actually turned me off into mobile home investing because the first park that I went to, this manager was like, no, you can't work here. No, you're not allowed to work here. We don't allow people like investors to work in this park.
Mm,
And I was actually already talking to the sellers and they wanted to sell me their home. And it was a great deal. I think they just wanted to sell me their home for like $3,000. So I kept going back to the park manager, going back. She's like, no, she was really nice, but she's like, no, you just can't do this. If you're going to buy this, then you got to live in the park. And
mm,
then the other option is if I wanted to move the home, but I just wasn't set up for the whole thing. I was just starting
Yeah,
out, I was
yeah,
still
yeah,
a
yeah.
right.
newbie,
You were
still
starting
looking into
small.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So after that, I just got turned out with mobile home investing. It wasn't until a couple of years after that, then I was just kind of like, I'm going to look into it again,
Okay.
sold my entire real estate portfolio. Then I got into it again. And then this time, actually, at a real estate conference, I found a mentor and she was very successful. And she kind of just took me over her wing and she did everything to the T, what Lonnie Scruggs does in his book, Deals on Wheels. For me, I did things a little bit differently, but it was kind of the same concept. And then from there, I hit like in my radius, I'm in Texas, I hit about 200 mobile home parks. I know that's a lot
Wow.
of parks.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just picked and choose which ones I wanted to work with. But it wasn't until almost a year that I started that I found my first deal and closed on
Hmm.
it. So
Yeah.
But what's that? But go ahead, Nick.
There's importance in finding a mentor just now in Rachel's story because
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me sometimes where I could like read information by myself, read a book, and I could be inspired, but you still need that mentorship to kind of like fill in the gaps if you have any questions or someone with direct experience who actually did it. So yeah, just wanted to add. Really want you guys to pay attention to how critical it is to find a mentorship when entering something new.
mhm. I've had
And,
many,
and
many mentors, like local, regional, national, all categories of mentors.
and you kind of touched on it earlier, Rachel, about having that sales background. And I'm in sales myself, so I understand that everything in sales is about relationships. Do your customers trust you? If you're doing business to business,
Mhm.
do people look at you and they feel confident that they're getting a good deal, things of that nature? So that, like Nick mentioned, it's so important to have a mentor, because you need that relationship to fully understand and to feel
The
comfortable to go after it.
nuances. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. It's also a confidence booster because you also want to have someone that you can turn to make you
Talk to,
accountable.
yeah.
Yeah, to see, am I
Mhm.
doing all the right
Accountability. Yeah.
things, but at the same time, you don't want it to be like that, like their time is being wasted. So it needs to be beneficial.
Mhm.
Me and my
Mhm.
mentor that I had found at that real estate conference, we both came from corporate backgrounds. So
Oh,
she was a
cool.
corporate executive before she even did this, which is crazy with mobile homes. But
Wow.
and this was the only thing that she had actually gone into, mobile home investing, which was crazy. She's like, Rachel, you could teach me more because you've got that single family home background. I'm like, it's not much different, but
Yeah.
so we kind of worked with each other. We were both professionals. We both had, the professional background. So it just worked out. So you just have
Yeah.
to find someone that you can click with as well
Sure.
too. Because
Sure.
you can have somebody who's really good, who's really successful, but if they don't do business the way that you like to do business or
Or
communicate the
yeah,
way, yeah, it's not
if
going to
if
work
that's not
out.
relatable, if you can't
Mhm.
really relate to it, it's sometimes the messenger is just as important as the message. And that's also important too for people that are mentors looking to help others, maybe like mentees. It's also important for you to decide, not waste your time and make sure that you're
Yeah.
investing your time into someone that exhibits like, similar traits that maybe you have, so you can kind of relate to them. But I mean, I
Exactly.
think I think that point, Rachel, you touched on a little earlier, is still kind of shocking to me, that you sold your entire portfolio and then you got into mobile home. So
Mhm.
like, that's a big decision to
That's
make.
kind of a risk. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big
Yeah,
risk.
that's a big risk. Now, were
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
complete? Were you all the way bought in and confident that you'll figure it out, or were you just at the point where you're like, I've had enough of this, and I just can't do it anymore?
Pretty much I was burnt out and I was kind of tired of seeing that rent payment going towards the mortgage.
Mm,
And Lonnie Scruggs really teaches, instead of being, because he was a landlord, he
okay.
was a landlord before he got into mobile home. Same background as me. He was burnt out. He's like, why do I need to be the landlord when I can just be the bank? And I
Gotcha.
found that the bank, no matter what you did, they
Always
were the
makes the
ones that
money.
kept getting paid every month. You don't call your bank and say, hey, I can't pay this month. You know, I mean, unless,
Yeah.
you really, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right, right.
Your landlord, okay, people call up their landlord. So I'm just like, at that point I had to change the way I do business, change the way where I'm going to be going in the future. That's the difference. And the types of people that Lonnie Scruggs worked with were actually more people with a homeowner and mentality versus I'm a tenant
Gotcha.
mentality. So
Now, Rachel, if let's say I'm an entrepreneur listening right now, and I want to get started with investing in mobile homes. You mentioned earlier about $3,000 for one unit.
mhm.
One of your first deals. How much money would you say I need to get started if I want to get into this business, and I'm interested in buying a first mobile home? And how much
Right.
money could
Yeah.
I be able to make, coming out the gate?
That's a real good question, Nick. And I will say it is different for everyone depending on your market and the types of mobile home parks you're going to work with. Because I buy these homes as personal property, meaning they're not attached to land. And there's three different types of parks. There are your low end, middle of the road, and higher end parks. And I talk more about this in my book, Adventures in Mobile Homes, which you can link up here in the show notes. But basically, first thing is you'd have to learn your market and see how much are these homes going for when they're put on the market and how much they've been sold. But I will tell you, my first deal, I bought it for $3,600 cash. And that was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath in a park. It was not advertised. Most of the deals that I do are actually off market deals. So either the park manager will call me or the residents will call me through word of mouth. So there's something to be said for that, but it does take a little bit more work versus just trying to find it on the internet or the multiple listing service. But I think typically if you're ready to buy and hold, I would have probably saved up because If you hold these homes and you're still fixing it up, you have something called a lot rent, where the home sits on top of the land for the park, and you have to pay that every month until you fill it. So I would say anywhere between, a ballpark $10,000 and $20,000 in cash, and depending on your market, just as a reserve. If you don't have a reserve, you can get started by becoming a bird dog or a wholesaler, just finding deals for other investors within the mobile home investing niche. That would be
And
my advice.
You touched on, you mentioned there was three levels of like investment and ownership in mobile homes. You personally just stick to owning the actual mobile home itself, but there are other things that you can be a part of or get involved in if you're interested.
Yes, there's different types of first thing, there's different types of parks. So there's the low end parks, which most people think about when they hear mobile home parks. There's middle of the road type parks, and then there's higher end parks. And higher end parks are like your 4 and 5 star parks, out there, and they're different neighborhoods, just like single family homes. I tend to stick now in the higher end parks, but because it just works with my personality, and they're mostly corporate owned. But I've worked in low end parks, I've worked in middle of the road parks and high end parks. The reason I don't work in the other parks, like the low end parks, it just doesn't work with my personality. I bought a home in a low end park. I call it my $2,000 nightmare. And I just didn't feel that the types of clientele that were attracted to that park, I could fill it. And I was actually trying to get the clientele that I'd worked with in higher end parks to have their family and friends. And they kept asking me, well, do you have any other homes in nicer parks? And so that light bulb went off. But I do know a lot of mobile home investors that the lower end parks or the middle of the road parks are their bread and butter. So it depends on your personality. But yes, to answer your question, there are other ways to get into mobile home investing. So you can buy the homes in the parks. You can buy the homes out on land when it's attached to land or not attached to land. You can move the homes to another location. And then you can also buy homes on lots, or buy a lot set up for a mobile home and move a mobile home on there. That's what I love about mobile home investing. You have options. I mean, I've never heard of moving a single family home.
Yeah.
So and I've moved mobile homes several times in my career.
Wow.
And then the last one is buying the entire mobile home park, if you'd like. I don't suggest that to people if you're just starting out, because you really need to know the business.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to ask, I was curious why, or if you own any full parks, or why you have not purchased any.
I have not, because I actually had this conversation with Lonnie Scruggs, who was actually my personal mentor, and he's considered the godfather of mobile home investing. But the reason why he didn't get into mobile home park investing, pretty much buying the entire park, was that he wanted to have the freedom to travel with his wife in an RV across the United States. And with the mobile homes, he said, I could do this because these are people with a mobile home homeowner mentality. But if he owned the entire park, he still has to manage the park, even though there's management in there. And then plus the expenses associated with parks, and not a lot of people know this, can be huge. And I will send you the link to my podcast episode about the truth about mobile home parks, if anyone is interested, and if you all want to learn what my personal thoughts about it. But I think there's more than meets the eye when getting into mobile home parks. And personally, there is a lot of hype around that right now. Personally, that's what I think. So
It's a headache. It's not worth the headache, is what it sounds like.
You've got to have a lot of time and a lot of money to get into these parks. And the people who are actually teaching about investing in mobile home parks, they actually had a lot of money when they started buying. I'm talking about millions of dollars.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Go ahead.
So yeah, Rachel, and we talked a little bit, or you've mentioned a little bit about your book. And Fees mentioned earlier in the intro that you do have a book that was a bestseller on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about making the decision to write a book, and what that whole experience was?
Sure. My first book was Adventures in Mobile Homes, and it was called Adventures in Mobile Homes, How I Got Started in Mobile Home Investing and How You Can Too. And that's basically my experience of what's worked and what hasn't worked as a mobile home investor. My spin is a little bit different than Lonnie Scruggs. It's the same concept, but I do things a little bit differently. And you can find out more about that by reading the book, and you'll probably link it up. But as a writer, I've been writing in my blog Adventures in Mobile Homes since 2007. And people had been asking me, are you going to come out with a book? What else are you going to do? Are you just going to continue with the blog? So I finally decided to write the book, but I will tell y'all, it was a struggle because it was my first book. Like anything, your first deal, your first speaking engagement, your first book, your first podcast episode
Podcast.
as a podcast. Exactly.
Shout out to
It's
Michelle.
going to be it's going to be a struggle, exactly.
Do it ugly.
Exactly.
That was her. Do it ugly.
Exactly. But after you've done it a couple times, then it's like riding a bike. So it did take me a while to write that book. But once I finally finished it, I was glad that I actually did it, because now it's actually a resource for people who actually want to get started in mobile home investing. So I'm glad I put it together.
Got it. And for our listeners, Rachel's book is linked on our website, 99hustles.com. We put it up in a blog post. We were just making a joke, say shout out to Michelle. One of our first podcast episodes with Michelle Jackson. And Rachel actually, as scheduling this episode, Rachel mentioned to us that she listened to that because Michelle was one of her close friends. So that was pretty cool.
That was a great episode, y'all.
She was
Go back and check it out. You heard it here first.
Yeah, she was one of our first episodes. And what Fees mentioned is how she said to us, "Do it ugly." The concept of "do it ugly" is like it's just good to just get something out there, as opposed to just being a perfectionist. And I think about that as you mentioned, like anything, first thing that you do. You know what I mean? As you just mentioned, like the first time. Writing a book. Can you talk a little bit about, people, what the reception was like, as people read it and, different questions they asked? Were there any misconceptions that you see from people as they get into mobile home investing, or, what do you see from your readers?
Right.
What type of responses do you typically see?
Well, from reading the book, a lot of people were interested in the mobile home investing just from a numbers perspective. And I can see that as a beginner investor. But as I always tell everyone, it's not just about the numbers. I know that's a portion of what being an investor is. The numbers do have to work for you, but it's also about learning how to create these processes, your business, setting up your business, your sales. I mean, there's so much you've got to learn as an entrepreneur. So I try not to just focus on the numbers. And for anyone listening, don't compare yourself to someone else, because a lot of these, real estate gurus, they talk about the numbers and how awesome it is and how much money it's not about that. For me, it's more about lifestyle. I started to do mobile home investing because I wanted to have time. That's more important for me, to have the time to do the things I want to do, not have to do. So now I don't have to be out there hustling every day trying to find mobile home deals, because the cash flow is coming in, and I can do other things like have a podcast, write books, do a speaking engagement. We had talked before the interview. I just spoke at PodFest. So just different things that I like to do for fun,
Right.
So that's really what it is for me. It's a means to an end. So
not to mention that you doing these things for fun also funnel back into your business, because you're being able to speak about the things that you've already done. So it's like it's one of those things where I guess you found it's a lifestyle. You found like a passion that you can actually put your all that work ethic into. So that's incredible. So being that you got burnt out with real estate, came into mobile home investing, and you've kind of found like a lifestyle that fits more your style, would you at this point say that you're happy?
Yes, I am very happy. I think I'd be happier. I'm happier now than if I went gung ho into real estate investing and was doing what everyone else was telling me to do because I've been there. I've learned from the real estate gurus. I remember there's one story, and I've told this in my podcast, where I just learned the system and I was miserable because the system depended on me making offers from home and sending offers to these banks, and I was just in the office all day. They were like, send out 100 offers to get one accepted, and I was miserable. Now some people were like, that's fun, just stay at home. No, I'm an extrovert. I was a sales executive. I need to be out in the field meeting people, so it didn't work with my personality. So I will tell people, just take the information and the advice that you receive when you hear these real estate gurus or listen to these podcasts or courses, but try to cater your business to your personality, because it's not going to work if your personality doesn't work with the business that you set it up to. So.
Got it. And Rachel, so one question we always ask our guests is, what is your hustler mantra? Now, your hustler mantra is like a quote or a phrase or something that you either live your life by or run your business by. So if you had to come up with one hustler mantra, Rachel, what would you say that is?
Sure. And I've been saying this from the beginning, from when I was writing my blog, Adventures in Mobile Homes. My hustler mantra is, success is a journey, not a destination.
I like that. I'm gonna put that on my back wall right there.
We got to get the letters.
I know,
letters
right?
to come up with
I need the lights. Just flick it on when it's time. That was
a good one.
that was one of the better ones, because that was short, concise, and to the point, which I can appreciate.
I've been saying it forever, so.
And clearly it's working. You've got enough time and money to buy as much candy as you want now. So
yes,
things are
exactly.
going.
Even with Halloween just ending. So
Awesome. And real quick, Rachel, we're obviously going to link out everything that we kind of talked about on the episode, but real quickly, if you wanted to shout out where people could find you, either, online, or your social media handles or your website, you can go ahead and do that now.
Sure. I want to shout out a couple things. First, y'all probably know my good friend Nick Lofer of the Side Hustle Show. And if you all want to link this up, I was interviewed on his podcast, if anyone is interested in learning more about mobile home investing, but I was also in his book, which is called 1,100 Ways. And y'all can link it up in the show notes as well, too, my story and expertise in mobile home investing, if y'all want to read more about that. And then next, I want to give a shout out to Danielle Desir and Aquania Escarnet. And they actually interviewed me recently for the Millennial Wealth Builders series, which is a podcast series, which is going to be turned into a book. And they received a grant from the Plutus Foundation, from the Plutus Awards, to actually put on the series. So if any of y'all want to check out my interview there about how I built wealth through mobile home investing, I'm sure you all can link it up in the show notes. But if anyone wants to learn more about me and get in touch, the best way is to go to my website, adventuresinmobilehomes.com. And I'm also on social at Mobile Home Girl. I'm pretty active on Twitter and also Instagram. So.
Awesome. Rachel, that was incredible. We really appreciate your story, your and all the things that, me personally, I know I'll take from this, and I'm sure the entire 99 Hustle Nation can take from as well. But that's a wrap for this week's episode. Thanks for listening to the 99 Hustle podcast. Be sure to visit 99hustles.com to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our amazing bonus content. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Always remember, there are 99 hustles. All you got to do is choose one.
99 hustles.